Hi folks, Mythico DM here. Well, the next big contender to the throne that is held by Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons is now on Kickstarter, and it is doing very, very well. In a single day, DC20 has cranked out over 500,000 USD. I think it's almost closer to 600,000 at this point, and it's smashing its own stretch goals and giving Alan, the dungeon coach, and his team real big reasons to celebrate. Now, I'll have links in the description below to the Kickstarter. So what is DC20 and how does it compare to 5e and Pathfinder 2e? So I'm going to run over some of the similarities and the differences with this system. Now, the dungeon coach has been working on this for quite a while. I jumped in around alpha 0.4 and have been reading over the updates all the way up until yesterday's Kickstarter. So this game started as kind of a cobbled together set of homebrew rules that tweaked a hybrid of Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder. Now it has slowly been morphing into its own thing, but it still has the bones of D&D and Pathfinder in it. So if your group is looking to switch, this should be a bit more easier than, say, going to Daggerheart or MCDM when that finally comes out. So like Pathfinder, DC20 has also dropped the ability scores that D&D is holding on to that no one really cares about. You know, the +4 to strength is more important than the score of 18, but I digress. So you still have to roll an attack or save as you would before. You take your D20 plus your prime modifier. Now this is where things get a bit different, as DC20 only uses 4 stats: might, agility, charisma, and intelligence. Con is gone, rolled into might, and wisdom has faded into intelligence. So that's allowed the game to be a bit more streamlined. Now your prime modifier is pretty much your highest stat, so you can play an intelligent barbarian or charismatic ranger as examples. Now there are no saving throws like in Pathfinder. Gone are forward to reflex and will. You again just use your ability modifiers from your 4 stats, very much like 5e. So attacks are either against your physical defense or your mystical defense. And that's basically, the system uses a base 8, plus your agility, your combat mastery and armor bonus for physical, and an 8 base plus your combat mastery, and both your charisma and your intelligence modifier for your mystical defense. Here's the big thing that will be a bit odd to both 5e and Pathfinder players. Now, damage is a set number. You do not roll damage dice. So you roll to hit and then the damage is set. The one thing that changes this is how well you hit your target. In Pathfinder, there are similar degrees of success. In DC20, for every 5 you beat your target number, you add more damage. So if your target number is, say, 14 and your total with the D20 roll is 19, then you get more damage. If you hit with a 24, you get even more damage, and so on and so on. Now this is great as it really removes crit fishing that happens in 5e, where only on a natural 20 does it make a difference most of the time. Now when it comes to what you can do in a combat turn, this is very much a hybrid of 5e and Pathfinder. So you get 4 action points. Now this is pretty much the same as Pathfinder, where you get 3 actions per turn plus a reaction. But in DC20, if you want to attack, you spend an action point. If you want to attack again, you spend another action point with a penalty that I'll talk about in a little bit. So you can move, attack, cast a spell, aid someone else, dodge as a reaction later, even though there aren't really reactions. You do not have to use all your action points on your turn. You can hold onto 1 or 2 or even 4 of them and use them as, like I said, reactions later, even though that's not really stated as a reaction. Now, this can be somewhat annoying as a GM and as a player, because someone can always be interrupting your turn or another player's turns with their actions. But I do plan to play test this a lot, and I will give an update on my thoughts on, how this system works in a later video. Now, remember when I said there was a penalty with your multiple actions? Well, there is. So unlike Pathfinder that has multiple attack penalty of a -5 to your second attack or your -10 to your third attack in a turn, -4, -8 if they're agile, in DC20, you do things a bit differently. And something I know that a lot of D&D players have talked about for a decade: advantage and disadvantage stacks. So your second attack is with disadvantage. Roll 2d20, take the lowest. Would you like to make a third attack? No problem. Roll 3d20 and take the lowest. On the flip side, do you really want to land that attack? Well, spend 3 actions, roll 3d20 and take the highest. So yes, you can stack, and they do stack differently. So if you have 2 or 3 things that give you disadvantage and only one thing that gives you advantage, then the disadvantage actually stacks. So these do stack up and down, which is actually really, really interesting. And I know a lot of players that I've played with have home rules about this sort of thing as well. You can have a wild turn where an ally spends an action to aid you, which gives you actually a D8 to your attack roll. So you attack with double advantage, add the D8. And remember before when I told you that for every 5 points you beat a target number by, this affects damage. So this really creates some really cool team dynamics and tactics. Now, all of the classes have been reworked. There are some new classes such as the Commander, which is a throwback from 4th edition D&D. And they did remove Paladin in favor of the new Spellblade class. The Dungeon Coach, Alan, he goes into the reasons for this in a video, and it's actually an interesting thing. I don't fault him for it at all. Spellblade is going to basically take over for a Paladin or for a Wizard, hybrid class, etc. Multi-classing is ran very similar to Pathfinder 2e, where you gain what they call talents from other classes, and you don't dip into them like you do in 5e. I absolutely prefer that kind of multi-classing. So taking time out of being a certain class to learn the basics of another class, and it limits your abilities that you get with your primary in 5e is really annoying. Now, 5e classes also have a glaring problem that both Pathfinder and DC20 have solved. There are no dead levels. You always get something in DC20 as you gain a level, whether that's a class feature, an ancestry feature, a subclass feature, a talent, or at higher levels, an epic boon. You really get something and it has meaning to it. And 5e, I think, really missed the boat on that. They could have reworked their stuff for 2024 a little bit better, but whatever, we'll get into that when those finally drop in December. DC20 is also launching a DC20 magazine. And Alan's already stated that there will be new classes and ancestries added to it as well. So that'll be really fun to see going forward. Speaking of ancestries, they're using a system that I've seen before, but I can't remember which game it was from. If you know, leave a comment down below and help me figure it out. But at any rate, you receive ancestry points, 5 of them to start, and you purchase your ancestry abilities with those. Now, there is a basic set of abilities that you can just grab for the 5 points and be the best elf or dwarf or human or whatever that you can be. But if you want to get creative, you can use a few of those points to buy basic abilities of another ancestry. And I swear I've seen this before somewhere. I think maybe Shadowrun. But anyway, that's going to bug me for a while until I figure it out. Anywho, there are a lot of ancestries to start. 12 of them, I believe, but they're very flexible and dynamic to allow the creation of many, many more. This game does have a bit more character management to it with the hit points, action points, stamina points, mana points, rest points, and grit points during a combat turn. Now, characters will likely only have to track a couple of those during the combat, but it still adds a bit more to the complexity until you get used to it. I may just design a tracker board for my group using my laser printer and do it that way. Dying is a little bit more interesting as well. It is an interesting kind of hybrid between Pathfinder and D&D. So when you hit 0, you're not out of the combat. You're not waiting around for others to help you. You do gain an exhaustion of 1. And that will stack, but you still get 1 action point on your turn. Now you need to make a check at the end of your turn, then you roll your death save. Now, if you fail, you take what they call 1 true damage. If you crit fail, you fall unconscious until you get 1 hit point. If you crit succeed, you gain 1 hit point. Now, what they're calling your death threshold is your prime modifier as a negative. So you could have a -3, -4 at higher levels, a higher negative than that, a -5, 6, whatever. But once you hit that, you're done. Dead. Shed your mortal coil. No longer one of the living. Moved to the great beyond. You get what I'm saying. There's a lot more to the game than I really want to go into in this video. And I do plan to have a much deeper dive into the rules of this game. I want to review the classes, check for updates when they come out on the beta, etc. If you'd like to see me make more videos about DC20, again, let me know down in the comments. So I will leave a link below to the Kickstarter that runs till the beginning of July. And I'll leave a link to Dungeon Coach's YouTube channel where you can get a ton more information and he is planning to do a lot more live streams going forward as the Kickstarter is rolling. Now, this game is definitely one to watch this year. The physical books are slated to come out by October next year, but anyone joining the Kickstarter will have access to the beta rules as the game evolves. Now, I do believe that this system will be published under the Orc license, allowing third-party content creators to add to the game with lore, adventures, and much more. I really hope they hit a hefty sum for their Kickstarter, and I do wish them nothing but success in the future. This system is really exciting, and for me, I think this is one that I will be running some games in, supporting them. Again, I prefer to support the smaller creators, especially with a system like this. I think is going to be an amazing product going forward. The Dungeon Coach is very, very energetic. He's extremely passionate about this project. His team is passionate about this project. You will see if you watch any of his videos what I mean. Knowledgeable about his game, about D&D and Pathfinder in general as well. So I truly do hope that these guys really succeed and really bring a good contender out for those who may not be interested in jumping into Pathfinder for how crunchy the rules are, those looking to get away from Wizards of the Coast. So I really do hope that this game really does succeed, and I wish them nothing but the best. But that is it for me today. I will see you all in the next video. And in the meantime, and in between time, may all your games be full of myth, mirth, and magic. Bye for now.